Hi, I'm Brad with BigFamilyHomestead.com, and today I have a confession to make. I got worms. Now, before you go getting the wrong impression, no, I haven't been overseas or have any kind of funky digestive thing going on. I do have worms, and they're awesome. These little buggers are vermicomposting machines. Say it with me, vermicomposting, which means worms that compost. Yeah, composting worms, you say, and I say yes, composting worms. Having red wiggler worms for your garden for making worm tea, it is incredible what they will do for your plants. And today we're gonna go over some of the amazing highlights of how this is gonna benefit you, your homestead, your prep. Anybody who's interested in being self-sufficient, you need to take seriously the idea of worms for yourself. So today we're just gonna look at a few of the basic overview things that you're gonna consider when you're deciding whether or not worms are for you. And yes, should be the answer. But anyway, the first thing we're gonna look at is a habitat for them. So here is our habitat. So here is our worm tower, our vermicomposting condo, if you will. Tennis Buffy. Well, not really, but anyway, we broke down and bought this thing. It was about $100 online, and we had actually made some worm composting bins out of basic, Rubbermaid totes, and they worked just fine, but I wanted to have something that was a little more scalable, and you can get more trays for these things, and we were creating more scrap, and this just made sense. And normally, if you know any of our videos, I am absolutely a proponent of save that money, but this was just happening to be a luxury that we really did want to spend some money on, and heck, it was W-2 season. Yeah, when you got a big family, we get a check back. So we used some of that money to get a few of our creature comforts. Worm bins, yeah, Well, that was bad. Basically, as you've got down here, right down here, there's a catch basin for all the liquid that comes down through, but then there's worms and compost. You put your materials up in here, which I'm gonna show you just briefly. What happens is when the worms eat everything that they want and they create the compost, their poo, they move up. There's little holes in each of these trays and they move up. So you're kind of putting all your scraps above, they fill it up, move upward, and you just keep doing that, and they keep going up until you're at the top, and then you have a load of amazing usable compost. Way to go, worms. Now, one added cool feature about this ready-made shelf offering, the worm tower of terror thingy, is this spigot here. Now, as these worms are composting, they're gonna be creating some liquid. The juices are gonna go through there. That makes an amazing worm tea. So you can basically tap it right off if there's any stuff in there. Let's see, we got any stuff in there? Yeah, we just got some, but here, I'm gonna show you this. This stuff is amazing. Whoop, come loose now. We got the mother load's flowing. So let me go ahead and stop that off and check this out. You see that rich, deep color. You can use this straight on your garden, in your plants, or you can cut it. If you want to go ahead and dilute it a little bit, you can, but this is absolutely gold for your plants. Now, one thing about our liquid gold here, one thing that people have a misconception of is that this is gonna stink. Well, if you've got your balance right, if you're not putting too much scrap into your vermicomposting bin, it doesn't stink. They take care of everything. This right here is straight up liquid worm dew, and I mean, it doesn't smell like anything except maybe just a little earthy tone. It doesn't smell at all. So I just wanted to take a little second and point that out. It's not gross like you think. Now, another misconception that we had before we really got into this was, oh boy, this is another thing that's gonna take up a lot of time. I'm already doing my chickens and my goats and my blah, 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 blah. I don't need something else added to my plate. And the reality is, if this thing took us 5 minutes a week, I doubt it's even that much. And then once it's filled up, the worms have done their thing and filled up the tray. It probably takes you about an hour to go through, make sure you're not throwing any sacrificial lamb worms into your garden that you want to keep in here. So there's a little bit of time involved there, but it's very, very little. And the great thing is the kids love it. So I generally don't have to do anything. Okay, so check this out. We're gonna take one of these tiers off of there and I'm gonna show you what's going on. If we can get in there. Look at that rich, rich soil. See them worms cruising around in there? Scooch that around there for me, Mama. She's got her hands in there. Look at that. That is unbelievably gold for your garden. See those worms in there? Doing their thing. Now this stuff is ready to be sifted through. Keep your worms. And that is black gold, and I do not mean Texas tea, Mr. Clampett. Nay. Okay, so now this tray was a little further down, and if you go ahead and scratch around in there, you'll see that they've taken all of the material that we've put in there, which can be, you know, we put in there paper, shredded paper. We'll put in there tea bags with the tea in it. They love coffee grounds, all kinds of stuff like, you know, lettuce scraps, green things. You don't want to put like onions or citrus in there or any kind of meat, but they will basically go through, eat, poop, compost, and then go up. They'll go up, 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 up to the next tier where there's more stuff, and you just keep adding. And then every so often you take one of the bottom tiers off and just keep going. They'll just keep going in a circle. So here they are. If you can see these little guys, they are hard at work making us amazing plant food, worm tea to be. Oh, yeah, here, I'd like to introduce you. This guy's name's Harvey, and that is Milford over there. They're hard at work. We're gonna let them go back to work. Okay, so I'm interested. What can these magic worms do for my soil? Okay, you ready for this? Worm poop in your garden is gonna give you 5 times more nitrogen than regular soil. It's gonna give you 7 times the amount of phosphate, which helps your roots and all of the plants grow real nice. And 11 times the amount of potassium, which is going to ensure healthy immune systems in your plants. That's some pretty useful poo. And on average, about 13% of the food scraps that an average family will throw away into the garbage is actually a food source for these awesome little wiggly composting beasties. Now a couple words on worm tea. First of all, what the heck is worm tea? Well, what you do is you basically have your worms, they're vermicomposting, they're making your compost, and there's a couple different ways you can do it. I'm gonna make a video on how I brew 5-gallon buckets of worm tea, but in a nutshell what it is you take non-chlorinated water, you put some of your compost into a paint strainer bag, you tie it off, get that down in your water, and you're gonna feed the bacteria, the good bacteria that's in that compost with some unsulfured molasses. You get a fish bubbler going, and what happens is they start multiplying, and they're making millions and millions and millions of unbelievably beneficial bacteria for your plants. They're gonna kickstart you and turbocharge your plants into yields like you have not imagined. And so that's one way you can make the tea. Another way is like just taking it right off the tap of your vermicomposting setup. Our tiered system has a spigot right on it. So you can take that and drain it right off there and put that directly onto your plants, or you can dilute it. It's so good. You definitely, if you're a gardener, you gotta be down with worms. So here is a new top tier. We've basically taken one from the bottom that they were completely finished with, and this is just shredded paper. We shredded the paper, and that right there is actually a banana peel that the kids, well, they didn't eat it, but check this out. See those worms in there? All right. So those worms are gonna go ahead and eat that. We wanna keep this newspaper, or rather this shredded paper, damp. We just put it in there, so it's still too dry. We're gonna take a little spray bottle, but then they will turn all of this into that in a very short amount of time. Now the worms of choice for us, the BigFamilyHomestead.com crew, are red wigglers, and we've chosen them because we are going for a composting worm. If you wanted to raise worms, say to grow for fishing bait, You might consider a night crawler, or for chickens, they're bigger worms. Well, you can do that. We have selected the red wigglers for our composting worms, and they like to have the temperature generally between 40 degrees and 80 degrees. So for us, it's very convenient just to keep them in the garage where the temperature doesn't fluctuate much past that pretty much all year. So honestly, I got worms and you need them too. So yeah, silly, I know. But the reality is these things are amazing for your garden for all kinds of different reasons. Soil amendments, you're not wasting as much food scraps. And if you have chickens, you could raise a different kind of worm, and that is incredible feed for your birds. So tons of reasons that you should seriously consider vermicomposting or just raising worms for your chickens, your animals. I am Brad with bigfamilyhomestead.com. I hope that you have enjoyed this video. And if you haven't, well, I really don't want to know. Anyway, you have an amazing day.